You're listening to TG1F, an F1 podcast with Kate and Nicole.
We're your hosts. I'm Kate.
And I'm Nicole.
And this is our show where, you know what? Let's do something a little different.
Welcome to TG1F's Read an F1 Romance Novel Month.
F1 romance, author interviews, book recommendations, oh my.
Join us for a month-long celebration of F1 romance authors and the stories that get our hearts racing.
Because while F1 drivers are filling their shelves with trophies, we're filling yours with F1 romance novels.
Who are we talking to today, Kate?
Turn the page and find out. So, this is just another episode of our favorite series, I think, that we've ever done on this podcast. And welcome, Grace Newman, to the show. Thank you for being here.
A literal dream come true. So it's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Don't hype our egos up like that. We can't handle it. They're already big enough. We are so happy to have you here. We have heard so many good things about A Man's World, and I just can't wait to hear more from you. So without further ado, for all of our listeners that are tuning into this episode, to give them a little bit of a sneak peek, a little elevator pitch about A Man's World.
Yes, I think the biggest thing, the biggest theme of A Man's World really is it's the female dynamic with the racing team. So I think it's the kind of a down low I always say. It's like Barbie meets Drive to Survive. When someone said that to me, I said it to my agent. She was like, "That's incredible."
Love that.
That really that's the vibe of the book. Okay. And so the idea is we have Valkyrie F1, right? I obviously picked these female warriors to be the team. I had to rename all the team names. So Valkyrie F1 comes in. They're this new team, right? My thought was really Audi coming in, this new team, new name, whatever. Someone else bought it over. They come in, it's a female, team principal. She said, I'm going to have 2 female drivers. We're going to have a lot of the leadership team are women. Obviously, it's a mixed bag. It's not just women in this team. That would be perhaps a little too unrealistic. But I really wanted to show that it's these women come in and they say, we can do this too. And so that is the theme of the book. So the 2 drivers, the main character is Georgia. She's near and dear to my heart. And so she comes in, she's won IndyCar, and I really made her the successful character. She's coming in, she's won 24 Hours of Le Mans. I just kind of said, you know what? She's gonna be a successful leader.
No
she's
one's
come
questioning whether she belongs here or not.
Exactly. Exactly. I was we're not gonna question it. I'm gonna come in. I love this behind.
I have no idea. I don't know what that was. I didn't think that this app had the ability to do things like that. That's crazy. Okay, sorry.
I wish my work used this. So anyway, she comes in, and that's really what you're going to expect. You're going to expect the story. It's not just a story about it is about the sisterhood between her and Lily. I think is really important. I said these drivers. It really, I always say, it's inspired me a bit of a Carlos Lando bond from their first season together. They are friends. It is clear they are friends, and I was not going to make them rivals. Even though there are comments between them, there's still this, I want to be ahead of you, because they're competitive athletes, and that's very important. But also on the sidelines, she's always rooting for Georgia to do X, Y, and Z. And the big trope of the book, my favorite trope to write, is fake dating. So it is a fake dating Formula One book, which what's not to love? My agent says, it reads itself,
Yeah.
And so Lily's so big in it. She's really the one that pushes it forward with Georgia to say, is this fake? Is it not? So it has that sisterhood in there. And it also has Georgia learning to be herself. And so a big part of it is we look at female athletes, and even though they are these strong, confident women who are competing against men, even if it's not in their field, but it's competing against men for sponsorships, there's always a finite amount of dollars any company is going to spend. So, I think of Serena Williams, she's not competing against the men in her tournament, but it is when it comes to sponsorship and other money and all these things, right? So that is what Georgia is learning, and she's learning that battle. And then she also faces a lot of, misogyny along the way, because it is such a male-dominated sport. So anyway, that's really what the basic bottom line of the story is about: a woman finding herself in a male-dominated field. Instead of her being on the sideline, she competes with the men, and I think that was really important. That's what I wanted to write. So it is also what my critics maybe don't like, but it's my favorite part of the story. So
fuck them. Speaking of this kind of man's world and women supporting each other and showcasing that they have the ability to do this at a level that men also do, it includes a lot of real life inspiration, taking misogynistic questions the main character is asked to a situation that happened to you that inspired you to write the book in the first place. So can you just tell us a little bit more about these inspirations and how they translated into the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book kind of the idea hit me after I worked for many years in a male dominated field. I was the only woman on my team. Obviously I am athletic, but I'm not a racing driver. But I was the only woman on this team, and I worked in a field where all of my clients, I traveled as a consultant, tried to client sites, and it's always men in the room. Me, 20 men, 25 men, were probably 20 years older than me. And it was a particular large client that I was very excited to prep for, just excruciatingly for this client. It was my biggest project to date. And I walk in, the first thing someone says to me is asking if I could go get them coffee. And I was like,
oh, my blood. You just
room.
boiled.
It was just like, I didn't know what to say. It's also a point where it's like, my management team themselves, they were amazing. They were great. They really fostered me as an analyst, but it really hit me kind of like a ton of bricks. And so it happened about 2 more times. It was one of those clients where I was like, what has happened here? Anyway, on the way home in the airport, my project manager, he does apologize, right? And he's like, I'm so sorry. And at the time, the first one, I said, I'm kind of like, I'm going to go get some coffee too. I'm sure I'll grab you one too. I was like, I feel like as women, we're just like, I'm going to smooth that one over. I'm not going to make a scene about it because it's not something that I can do. So anyway, fast forward to the airport. I literally was in the bathroom crying. I was like, this was horrible and not where I thought that was going to go. So after a very exhausting kind of 3 days with that client, I remember sitting on the airplane on the way home, and I was like, I want to write about it, and just started jotting down stories and questions and thoughts. And then I was like, you know what? I love sports romances already at the time. I was like, I want to write a sports romance, and just started putting together the idea. And that's kind of how A Man's World was born. And then it kind of went further. I'm very fortunate that one of my closest friends here in Los Angeles is an athletic trainer. In LA, obviously, there's a lot of sports teams, a lot of universities. I don't want to say what university she works for, but I was very fortunate that she works for a lot of female athletes. And so I asked her, I said, could you just pass up some questions? Could I talk to them? Whatever. She's like, of course, absolutely. And let me tell you, they had things to say. Okay. And it turns out we just asked women and listened. A lot of them were like, thank you for asking. Happy to talk. So I did that. It was between that, a lot of research, just, going through just YouTube videos from female athletes who are maybe at the college level, even though they're performing at high level college. Mm-hmm. They are just such a good source of information. I feel like a lot of journalists feel like they can ask them even more inappropriate questions. So all of the questions in the book come from these stories that I researched. Wow. And so that was really important to me to say, I think this may be one I twisted a bit to fit the plot, but I remember I ran it through and she was like, you were too nice to that journalist. And so one of my favorite feedback I got from various readers is, you're very good, people say, you're very good at making me very mad. And I was like, okay. I was like, but also the rest of the book, don't be too mad, don't close the book. Yeah. And so that's always one of my favorite criticisms, something I always come back and say, do you know they're true stories? And everyone's always kind of shocked. Some of them are like, I'm not that shocked. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's was really, really important to me.
So you talked about your critics and how some of them have said that this book feels, quote unquote, unrealistic because you came up with this team that is, a majority women, which it's not that unrealistic. It could happen, all right? Mm-hmm. But you also said that this is something that got you 4 offers from literary agents and people wanting to work with you because of that storyline that you put together. So tell us more about the unrealisticness. I'm heavily quotes if you're not watching on YouTube. I'm heavy hand quotes on unrealistic story and kind of how that impacted your journey and why you were so dedicated to writing it this way.
The biggest criticism that I get for the book is that when I'm writing this book, I'm not going to have the women be at the back. Mm-hmm. I cannot write a story where we finally have, this woman comes in, she's finally driving for an F1 team, and then she's losing every race. Yeah. And is it probably realistic where a new driver comes in and they aren't winning every race. Like, yeah, that's fair. Although that being said, I think like even last season, Oscar Piastri just kind of dominated out the gate. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's also very possible to do that. And what I always kind of counter to people and say, well, Lewis's first season, I think he came second to Kimi, I want to say, by 1 point.
Yeah.
And I always counter that one and say, well, why can't a woman do it?
Mm-hmm.
No one, none of my critics have anything to say to that. Or my favorite thing I always say is I always just say, thank you for telling me, is usually my response. If you DM me that, I will probably say, thank you for letting me know. And then not respond. I'm like, that's good. I haven't heard that one before. But that is a big one for me. And the other one I always say is like, look at Max Verstappen. He's obviously incredibly talented. There's no arguments there. Same for Lewis. And while he didn't dominate out the gate at, Toro Rosso when he was there, it was, the moment they put him on that Red Bull car, which is the competitive car, he wins.
Right.
And so it is this idea. It's very young, very talented. It's very obvious. Same with Lewis. You put them in these cars and they can win out the gate because of how talented and fresh they are. And so that was really my idea that is it, if I was a betting person, would I probably bet on that? No, and not because she's not a woman, because they are a newer team. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it doesn't mean they can't. Right. And so that was what I was going to write about. No one wants to read a book where she's losing every week. I don't want to write a book where she's losing every week. Right. I think it's fun. And then when I really looked up the stats, I said, it is possible. And so that's kind of what I went with. And I said, in the end, it's fiction. It's a romance
fiction.
Book.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, it's your book.
Like, you were writing the book. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not reading. Okay, I famously hate nonfiction books. Like, I'm like, these are so boring. And so I don't want to read about that. I want to live in fantasy land, and I want to believe that Formula One gets their head out of their ass someday, and women don't have this problem. They do come in and they do rock shit, and they just like crush it, and I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. My thought is like Mercedes come in, they build a rocket ship for Lewis, and then it's like go, go, go. So why can't Valkyrie come in and build a rocket ship and then go, 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 right? And that's why I made Georgia older. She's not 21 or 22. She's experienced. She won IndyCar. I gave her other things to kind of beef her up, to say, she's not just no one coming out of nowhere, and also she can just be this radical talent, right?
Yeah. We just talked to Beth Peretta, who is VP of Sporting at Formula E, and she has basically an almost full female racing team. And she taught those women how to change tires at an Indy race over like 4 months. And they worked hard and they learned how to do it, and they did it flawlessly. And so I hate this conception that women being involved in the sport is quote unquote unrealistic.
Yeah, and that really is the biggest thing I get. And I just said, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to write 2 more books about it. So
thank you.
Hell yeah.
That is kind of what the agencies love. They were like, oh, it is a little different, right? Not a lot of sports romances, although it is, I see more and more of it, have the women competing. And for someone, I'm like, okay, I understand you're writing an NFL romance. There is that. It's probably maybe a bit more unrealistic just because I don't know if there's rules or not with the NFL, but all right. But it is, I kind of said, that's not what I want to do. It's why my next series is tennis. So I was like, I always want my woman in the book to be an athlete. I think that's fun. Although book 3 is going to be a team principal, but I feel like that's its own drama, right? So yes. You can have your own drama there. So, and that also kind of leads into, I didn't answer about the Spice rating, about why it's like fiction and things like that. So I would say the Spice 3 out of 5. So I've been told. I've also been told 5 out of 5. I would disagree with that. I think it's 3 out of 5 or 2.5 out of 5. I don't know. I've gone through, I try not to look at Goodreads ever. But I have had people, I've just asked them, like, just, what do you think it is? And I also go back to, like, the Spice and stuff. Like, they're probably not going to be having sex in the garage, I will say, my agent was hilarious when she signed me. She said, do you think they could in the car? I said, go look at a car. I said, no. I said, that is her car. Yeah, I was like, that car is her baby. She's not going to risk damaging that car. But anyway, just going back to that made me think that of like talking about unrealistic. I'm like, that's the unrealistic part.
That's unrealistic.
Yes. Yeah, in the car, crazy question. Definitely not. On, maybe. And
look, I really thought about it, but I was like, you know what? If she damages that car, she'll fall out of love with him quickly. Her first love probably is racing.
Makes sense. So kind of circling back to your journey to becoming an F1 romance writer, what was the path to being a Formula One fan?
I grew up a Formula One fan. So my grandfather, after World War II, he raced cars for a while before he ended up going to university, and so he raced cars. My mom grew up watching it her entire life. We're British, and then we moved to the U.S. And so I remember they used to buy it on pay-per-view, which is like,
wow,
dedicated.
Bought it on pay-per-views. I've watched it. I can remember watching Silverstone from age 5, 6, and it was such a big deal. And they would have friends over, and they would make such a big deal about it. So I do the same thing now. For Silverstone, I make a British breakfast. We have friends over. We decorate the house and just kind of do the same thing that my parents did for me. And so that's how I grew up watching it, especially I grew up watching, Jenson Button, and my mom being British was so into the British drivers and really loved that. So watching Lewis just kind of dominate was very fun for us. It was kind of the thing that the family did together.
I love that.
I love that so, so much. And so when you were on the plane and you were crying in the bathroom and you were
We've all been
writing,
there. We've all been there.
We've all been there. I was crying in the bathroom. I was crying in the bathroom today. Not in an airport, but in my own house. Still crying in the bathroom. But you were writing down all these ideas. You're like, I have to write this book. Was it like, was that the point that you were like, it's going to be about Formula One? Or like, what was kind of that moment when you were like, this is going to be an F1 romance novel?
I think it was probably shortly after that. I knew I wanted to be a female athlete. I just started jotting down the fake dating and the ideas. I said female athlete, struggling to get sponsors, fake dating to help the PR, all of our favorite tropes. I knew I was going to have all of that. And I really went back and forth between tennis, which I also grew up watching. I used to play tennis. My parents are very into tennis. So I kind of went back and forth between the two. And then my husband and I, part of the reason we met, we get married, is that we both love Formula One. It's like the big thing we also do together. And so he didn't start watching it until I made him watch Drive to Survive. I was like, come on, get with the program. You're going to love this. Now he's way more obsessed than I am. I'm literally doing this interview next to his simulator he built and just iRacing, all that stuff. So,
oh my God.
With all of that, I said, you know what? This is kind of fun. It's like a nice way to really stay engaged with the sport. It's something that I have a lot of friends because of it. We do watch parties again, all this stuff. And I said, that's what I want to do. And also, I like the idea of a woman beating the man. And it is a sport where they actually, like, a woman could get in this car and could race against men, right? Like some of the sports, in tennis, it is quite, besides the mixed doubles, it is quite split. And I think it's Battle of the Sexes, which is, a great movie. It is, and obviously, the woman wins and all that good stuff. And I was like, oh, I could do something like that. But I was like, oh, then I'd be rewriting this movie. So I said, you know what, let's do something new. And that's when I said F1. There was a lot of things going for it. My husband read all the racing scenes, made sure they were accurate. It was a very fun way to bond and do something with him as well. So, that kind of worked.
So fun. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Do you so this may be not the right question to ask you specifically, as the topic of your books are women, but did you pull any inspiration from real life or current F1 grid in your work?
I think any F1 author that says no is probably lying. We all have something in our mind.
It doesn't have to be like a full carbon copy, but little personality traits from here or there. You were like, I like this from this person, this from this person.
I love when people message me and say, is it this person on the grid? It always giggles, especially when they get it right. So definitely pull Luca from Carlos. Obviously, he's not Spanish. He's Italian, but for sure, Carlos Sainz energy. I was like, whatever. I'm not that shy about it. Everyone else, I'd say probably not. I'd say probably like Luca's friend naturally drifted to the way of like his friendship maybe with Lando, but I think I have a lot of guy friends that have very similar friendships. So I think those are friendships I've just seen from men in my life. My husband has a similar friendship with his friends, so I think you could a lot of people draw similarities, and I would say it also the same similarities from my friends as well. That's kind of how I watch my guy friends hang out and interact with each other. So I'd say probably that. And that being said, like, it is a book that focuses on women, but I always like to say it is still a romance book. Luca is a big part of the story. He actually has his own arc. Poor Luca. He does have his own arc. We never talk about it enough.
Boo, men.
It's a very important arc, and it's actually, my agent's her favorite part of the book is his arc. So I think, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I think she loves his arc. So she helped me brainstorm that. So I think it's, his arc is very important. It's something that is dear to my heart because it's something that I've really experienced as well with my parents. But, it's hard to say. But let's just say, Luca, let's go with Carlos Sainz.
Okay.
I'm not going to be that shy. Look, good looking man.
Okay, well.
Good for him. I always think of Carlos. I always could think back to Drive Survive McLaren, when Zach said, like, I mean, look at Carlos. He's a handsome man. We're going to get sponsors. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to write a book,
Exactly. Okay, so you've already answered that fake dating is one of your favorite tropes to write. Obviously, that's the trope in this book. Are there any tropes that you haven't written that you like desperately want to write?
Yeah, I actually am really excited to write like a golden retriever, main male character as we call them. So all of them that I write, it's pretty much like they're kind of grumpy. Luca's not really grumpy. He's more just like he's that playboy, that kind of playboy aesthetic, which is why he needs good PR help. We all love him. And then the next book is like Grumpy Sunshine. So it's George's brother who's bitter but his sister keeps beating him. And so finally, she slips out for a moment and he's like, this is my effing time. My sister's gone. And then Lily comes in and he's like, F Lily, I'm going to destroy her. And so it's like that really fun Grumpy Sunshine. And Lily's just comes in and is like, I'm so excited to be here. It's great. Their dynamic's hilarious. So I can't wait for book 3 to be like a golden retriever. Like it's a second chance golden retriever book. They were in love. The team principal, they were in love 20 years ago because of, of her parents and whatever. It was for her first love and they broke up and they weren't together. And now that she's divorced and she's back and single and she owns this Valkyrie team, she's the CEO. She's like, I have no time for men, whatever. I'm trying to beat them all over here. And then he is having like a redemption kind of thing, like a Fernando Alonso moment where he comes in, he's like, I want to win one more championship, and they used to be in love 20 years ago. So I can't wait to read that.
Okay, I can't wait for that one.
You're really, really good at an elevator pitch. You're really good at an elevator pitch. Like I'm like bought in. I'm like, okay, when, where, and how do I get my hands on that immediately?
Yeah, I've plotted it out. I'm really excited. When I came up with that, I was like, ooh, forget book 2. Can that be book 2?
Okay,
it's right. Save the best for last. Patience is a virtue, they always say. Okay. And you already covered, you have 2 more future F1 novels coming out. So let's get into some rapid fire fun questions. Okay. So I think we can kind of assume for everyone who's watching on YouTube, but who is your favorite F1 team and who is your favorite driver?
I'd actually written down, I grew up loving McLaren and watching McLaren. So I was like, it's McLaren, but wearing this shirt feels a little silly. I do love McLaren. They'll always have a special place in my heart. I've been watching that team for so long, but obviously Mercedes with Lewis, I think he's a phenomenal driver. It was fun to watch him win growing up. I just have a really special place watching Lewis win, watching with my parents and stuff. So, and also obviously with Silverstone, I was like incredible. So 10 out of 10.
Such a high.
Oh, I love it. Right now, outside of, F1 romance novels, what is your favorite book or book series at the moment?
I love, I'm actually a really huge murder mystery fan. So I love anything by Ruth Ware. I was going to write murder mysteries first. I have a bunch of ideas for murder mysteries. I have a bunch of heist ideas. Love those. But in terms of sports romance,
it's language.
I just you literally just said the word heist and I blacked out. And I have can I be in the storyboarding sessions? Can I help? If I can't be in a heist someday, can I at least help plot one out? I'm obsessed.
I honestly leaving sports romance writing would be really sad, but this heist, it's a romance heist. So
why can't it be like a sports romance heist? I think that we can combine all of those things.
What we can certainly think about it. Okay, I'll come back for the brainstorm.
Perfect.
And my favorite sports romance series, I think, is The Puck Secret by G.N. Wainwright. She is awesome, an incredible writer. Really sweet person, one of the first authors I ever interacted with, and just her book was one of those books where I was in such a slump, read it in 2 days and was like, this was incredible. I'm going to continue writing sports romances. For a moment I was like, I don't know, I'm having such a slump read and a slump in my writing, and going through book 2 I was like, oh, I hate everything I'm writing right now. And I read her book and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And it really invigorated me. So I think I'll always give her a shout out because she's a great person and it's a great book. So
I love that.
And it's very smutty. It's excellent. But great plot, too. She really gets a good line between smutty and plot. So
Okay, amazing.
Perfect.
We'll add it to our list. And finally, if you were on The Amazing Race, which of your characters would you want to be your partner?
I would for sure want Lily. She's George's best friend in there. She's an absolute sunshine. I think George and I would probably hate each other because she's basically my personality, and I think it would be in the end we'd just butt heads. But Lily's an absolute sunshine, but she's also very witty, very dry humor. So I think I'd love to hang out with her. She'd be really fun. She's always go. So that's what you need in The Amazing Race. I don't have time for anyone to be depressed about it, to be like in their inner thoughts. I need someone who's like, I don't. Just vibes. Let's do it. So.
Yep.
No thoughts, just vibes. Just go for it. Exactly.
Exactly.
Key strategy. Well, Grace, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We just had so much fun. This is amazing. So I'm gonna roll out the little red carpet for you. Tell us everything. Where can people find you? Where can they get your books? Where can they, learn everything about you?
Yes. So you can, the best way to kind of follow the books is probably following me on Instagram with all of my updates. So right now it is not on Amazon,
Okay.
but it will be back. So if you follow on Instagram, you'll be able to also have a newsletter or whatever. All of those details are there. I also have a website. I think it's authorgracenewman.com. I didn't get crazy. You can find out all the details. It is definitely coming back. I just can't say when, but all of the big people behind me, are working hard. So my agent is out there working very hard. So I can't wait to share all of that and everything. So right now you can get my short story that's available on Amazon's Kindle Unlimited and whatever. A Man's World is on Amazon. So you can keep checking there to see when it comes back and everything. But otherwise on Instagram, I'll be announcing all of that in my newsletter and that good stuff. So, and Goodreads, it'll all be there.
Amazing. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining us on the pod today.
Thank you for having me.
And I can't wait to talk again. I know this is not the last time that we'll be chatting.
I'll be in contact for the heist. Don't worry. Maybe we'll
Amazing.
still Formula One. There's a lot of things.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Grace.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of TG1F, an F1 podcast with Kate and Nicole.
If you like what you heard, don't miss out on the fun between episodes.
Keep up with the chaos on Instagram at 2 Girls 1 Formula. That's spelled out TWO Girls numerical 1 Formula.
And check out our website, 2girls1formula.com, to shop cute fan-made F1 merch.
See you next week.
But like we said, in the meantime, we'll see you on the internet.